Hello and welcome to Take the Lead Presents Virtual Happy Hour. We're glad you're here. I'm Gloria Feldt, co-founder and president of Take the Lead. We host virtual happy hours on the second Wednesday of each month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We interview women who take the lead in their own lives and careers. So you have 1 hour once a month to boost your career. It's a quick, easy, and fun way to learn what other smart, interesting role model women are up to too. Please tweet your questions to @TakeLeadWomen or type them into the chat box. We want to hear from you and we'll get those questions answered. Take the Lead's mission is nothing less than leadership gender parity by 2025. Visit www.taketheleadwomen.com to find training programs for yourself and your organization. You can also find mentoring, coaching, role model events, and great content to help you on your journey. That's www.taketheleadwomen.com. Now, make yourself comfortable. Grab a cocktail, a mocktail, tea, coffee, glass of water, whatever you like, and sit back for an inspiring virtual happy hour. Hello and welcome. Welcome to these amazing guests we have for you tonight. I can't wait to jump into this. I just want to tell you that, my father always said that the thing he least wanted to ever do was to work for somebody else. And so we're going to talk about entrepreneurship today. We're going to sort of pose some questions to people. Like, for all of the people who are with us tonight, we welcome you. We're so glad that you're here. And you may be asking yourself whether you can, I have to just a minute. I'm sorry, but I have to just do a little quick thing here so that I've got us all set up correctly. And now we're rolling. Okay. So you may be asking yourself questions like, can you actually turn your passion into a career? Can you really do what you love and still be able to support yourself? So that's why tonight we want to take a deep dive into entrepreneurship with two incredibly dynamic women who are going to share their secrets to success. And they're going to give you some great tips to help jumpstart your next project or your biggest dream. I'm really all about, big, bold, audacious dreams. Go for it. I've got so many questions for you two. I can't believe it. And I know that everybody who's tuning in tonight does too. In fact, we already have a whole bunch of questions that have come in. So everybody's very interested in what you have to say. So I want to just first start by asking people who have additional questions. You can tweet them in to @TakeLeadWomen. You can use the chat box or use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And be sure that you stay till the end because we're going to have a great giveaway of Nathalie Molina Niño's fabulous new book called Leapfrog. You want to show it up there, Nathalie? Okay. All right. I just a quick little framing here before I jump into the proper intros of Nathalie Molina Niño and Nina Vaca. If you happen to catch my column, The Sum in Medium, this week, I wrote about the rise of women in entrepreneurship, and the numbers are astonishing. I mean, absolutely astonishing. Women-owned businesses in the U.S. grew by 114% compared to 44% overall in the last 2 decades. I mean, that is huge. That is just huge. And firms owned by women of color grew at more than 4 times that rate, 467% to be exact. I mean, that is a huge piece of the story. But even with these rosy numbers, we still find that when it comes to actually getting funded, seeking loans, getting investments, women are coming up short. Yeah. And in 2017, of the 61,560 companies that received funding, just under 1/4 were founded or led by women. So I just wanted to give that bit of a framework because there's such incredibly good news. And then there are still these big challenges that we have, and these two women are going to help us get over those challenges. So let me introduce Nathalie Molina Niño, a serial entrepreneur. She started her first business at age 20. She's now the CEO of BRAVA Investments, and that's an investment platform targeting high growth businesses that both do well for investors and improve the economic lives of women. As I mentioned, she's the author of Leapfrog, and you can pre-order it already, right? You can pre-order. It's actually officially coming out on August 28th, but you know, you can go ahead and purchase it. It's Leapfrog, the New Revolution for Women Entrepreneurs. And I can tell you, I read it and it's a fabulous book. You definitely want to get it. Prior to BRAVA, she led the launch of Self-Made. Actually, Nellie Galan, who wrote the book, a wonderful book, Self-Made, was a guest on a previous virtual happy hour. Mm-hmm. And in 2015, Nathalie co-founded Entrepreneurs at Athena, at the Athena Center for Leadership Studies at Barnard College. And she's just, you know, totally committed to delivering returns for investors while making a catalytic impact on women in the world. So what could be better than that? Welcome, welcome, Nathalie. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you.
Great. And Niño Vaca, one of the most celebrated entrepreneurs in the US. And you know what? I've got to tell you, I have been a fangirl following you on social media now for like 2 years. And I cannot begin to tell you how excited. I told Nathalie, I said, well, who else would you like to have on the program with you? And when she mentioned you, I said, Niño Vaca, yes, I've been wanting to meet her. So this is my fangirl moment. Is the chairman and CEO of Pinnacle Group, one of the largest Latina-owned workforce solutions providers in America. And it was recently named the fastest growing woman-owned or led company in the country for the second time by the Women Presidents Organization. So, I mean, that's incredible. That's really, I can't wait to hear about how did you get there? How did you get there? It's got to be an amazing story. Nina is also a very dedicated civic leader and philanthropist. And I know that she spends a lot of her time working to expand opportunities for entrepreneurs, especially in STEM, for women and girls. In 2014, she was appointed by the White House as a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship. And she's traveled the world inspiring the next generation of entrepreneurs. Part of what the two of you are doing is just like that. You two are the cause of this big upsurge in entrepreneurship. I'm sure of that. I'm totally sure of that. She was also named one of the 101 most influential Latinos in America. And get this, she's a triathlete. She's a mom. She's a director of 3 publicly traded companies with a combined market cap of 32 billion. So, I mean, you know.
She's a slacker. She's a big fat slacker.
Totally. I mean, I don't know. Well, anyway, okay. So I would like to jump in with the first question I like to ask people, because honestly, I think that this is the question that women most want to know about other successful, brilliant, professional women like you. And that is, how did you get to be you? How did you get to be you? What was your path? What took you here to where you are today? Nina, do you want to start?
Sure. Before I begin, Gloria, thank you for the kind words. And just so humbled to be here with Nathalie Molina. She is a powerhouse. When we met years ago, and I just thank you for the kind invitation. She is someone that is inspirational to me. She is behind many, many women. And so I want to thank you both for doing this. It's a privilege to be here. So the question is, how did I get to be me? That's a really broad question. I think the me you're seeing is kind of the after, but how does anybody get to be themselves? I mean, the answer is where they come from, their upbringing, their values. And, you know, for me, how I got to be me is not alone. Nobody does anything on their own. It has taken us, I always like to say, it's taken us 22 years to become an overnight sensation. And I mean, my secret is I am committed, I'm resilient, I come from an entrepreneurial family, but failure is just not an option. My parents were immigrants that came to this country, and one of our values is working hard, just working hard. And so that's really how I became me. I began, my father was an entrepreneur. My mother was a civic leader, recruiting people to join a cause, painting a vision that's larger than yourself, and just starting to recruit people to join you. When you're on the right path, the world conspires to help you. Recruiting Pinnacle associates, customers, clients, and then of course, my favorite is giving back to the community. So The me you see is the after, but make no mistake, it has taken 22 years of blood, sweat, tears, resilience, and just a can-do attitude.
I'm going to get back to the resilience part after a while, because I do think that's just a critically important part of entrepreneurial success. Nathalie, how did you get to be you?
I will just add, as inappropriate as that may be, she also managed to recruit herself a gorgeous, brilliant husband and have 4 children on top of being a triathlete and a CEO. Yeah. Nina, it never ceases to amaze. It's funny. We had similar beginnings in terms of my parents are also immigrants, Ecuadorian father. Nina is also Ecuadorian, Colombian mother. Worked really freaking hard and taught me the same values. I grew up in the sweatshops of Los Angeles. This is how my family made their way in the United States. They started because my grandmother was a seamstress. She came to this country, and one by one, she brought each of her 5 kids after her, and they all did what she did. And they worked in the sweatshops until one of them went and started their own factory. And then my dad started a cutting factory. And, my family lived and worked and grew up in that space, and taught me, long hours, hard work. I'm a little like Nina in that a lot of the times people want to know like what the secret is to this success or that success, and it's like there's no secret. I'm working when you're sleeping. It's
And she was answering. She will answer emails at 24 hours if she could.
But yeah, it's the immigrant mindset. It's the mindset that means that, you never give up, and you work not just for you, but you work for your community, you work for your family, you work for, like a good South American family, we're massive, and we're global and we're taking over. And we also we think in terms of community, we think in terms of diaspora. It's all of us or none of us. And, for me, I wanted to go as far away from what my family business was because I thought that maybe there would be an easier way. There's no easier way. So I went into tech. I made my way in that world. I was a tech entrepreneur for 15 years. I retired from that world about 7, going on 8 years ago now. I decided it was my time to pay it forward, to see if I could help other women entrepreneurs have a little bit of an easier go at it than I did, and to pay it forward. And so I co-founded the Center for Women Entrepreneurs, as you said, at Barnard, at Columbia University. And then, I started where I am now, which is that I, after a few years of working with women entrepreneurs like Nina, like so many others, it became really clear to me that women are lacking a lot of things. And one of the primary things is capital. And so I started my company because I realized that if women are lacking capital, then we have to build systems and we have to build businesses like mine to help solve that problem.
One of the things I meant to say about you and introducing you, and I totally forgot, Nathalie, is actually there were 2 things. One is that when I first met you, if I remember correctly, your Twitter handle was something like Global Misfit or something like that. And, yes. And the other thing is that you use the word about yourself to describe yourself as badass more than anybody I know. And I think it's really true.
I love it. Confidence is the best outfit you can wear.
The definition of it. I mean, this woman, she just makes it happen. She just totally makes it happen. So, all right. So, Nathalie, would you share what it is that BRAVA does that makes it unique? I mean, there seems like every day I see a new fund springing up, and I see many new funds springing up that actually help women, or have women in their sights some way or another. And I'm sure that you have some very specific, unique factors about BRAVA, and I'd love for you to share that with people.
Yeah, I mean, I should say first and foremost, we need more. Right. Wharton recently cataloged all of the platforms and funds that focus on investing in women. And according to their last tally, there's 58 of us. And when I started my company, it was more like 30 something. So yes, more and more are created all the time. We need more. There's no one right way. But what I found was a hole in the market. And the hole in the market was a few different things. I noticed that most people in the space were focused on early stage investment, which concerned me. because, okay, great. You've got that first bit of seed capital. Maybe you've even closed your Series A, right? The next round. And now the money dries up. What happens, right? Once you grow and get into these sort of larger check sizes. So that was the one thing that I wanted to do. So I wanted to focus on later stage companies. The other thing that I noticed is that almost everyone, and in fact, everyone that I know in the space, requires that there be a woman founder on the executive team, which I think is brilliant and it's necessary. But I also worry that there are capital sources that are going into places that are not necessarily benefiting anybody other than maybe one or two founders. And what I want to be sure is that we're taking a really systems broad strokes approach when it comes to elevating women. And so, for example, if two men come to me tomorrow and say, we've cured breast cancer, I want to invest in that company, right? It's irrelevant to me if that company, if they really are going to save the lives of potentially millions of women, that company be successful and be well-funded, because what I care about at the end of the day is the outcomes. And then the last thing is that, when I look at the entrepreneurial landscape, I see that Black and brown women, as you mentioned, Gloria, in the intro, they're starting more companies than anyone else. And as much as I love the Oprahs of the world, the Sarah Blakely who launched, Spanx, I mean, as much as I love those stories, one Oprah, one Sarah Blakely is not going to translate into millions of women being economically better off. Mm-hmm. So I want to focus on systems. And I think that the way you do that is to lift up entire ecosystems. So I'm looking at businesses that can prove to me that they are creating economic prosperity, not just for 100 women or even 1,000 women, but hundreds of thousands, millions, and if possibly billions of women.
Whoa, big vision, big vision. Yes. And Nina, that is what I'd like to come back to you with, is the subject of vision. What was your big vision when you started Pinnacle? And I think, for help us all understand the importance of vision in getting a big enterprise started.
Perfect. I'm happy to do that. I just want to build a little bit on what Nathalie said, because Nathalie and I are very like-minded in that perspective. I had the pleasure of speaking at Barnard, and I was on a panel, and it was very clear to me she hand-selected people, and Kat Cole and Carrie Hammer were on that panel. And it was then that I realized that every successful woman that I know always gives back to the community. And it's very clear to me that she was extremely selective about picking women that weren't just about themselves. They were about empowering other women. And that's my answer to your question when painting a vision. When you are trying to start a company, you have to paint a vision that is much larger than yourself. Because people aren't going to come and join you just to make you successful. People want to join something bigger. And, when I started Pinnacle, it was in the early 90s, 1996. And it was at the height of the dot-com era, where many companies were migrating from the mainframe environment to back then the Unix environment. And the need that companies had for IT talent was through the roof. So I knew that this would be a need. This is just the beginning, because the technology industry was the smallest industry when you looked at all mankind, but yet it was the fastest growing. So for me, the vision behind Pinnacle was, number one, finding the need in the marketplace. That's number one. You've got to find that need. And for me, that need was technology. And then the second piece of the vision is painting something larger than yourself, not being about yourself. I often tell women, if they want to build large, scalable companies, 3 things are critical. Number one, you have to put your people first. You got to put yourself last. Put your people first. Number 2, you've got to reinvest. You've got to reinvest in the business. I have reinvested massively back into the business, made the appropriate sacrifices in my personal life, mortgaged my home, bought used clothes. When I first started out, drove in cars for 14 years, delay gratification. And that's the third thing, is delay gratification. So putting your people first, reinvesting in the business, and delaying gratification were key components for me. And the reason why Pinnacle is today is because I had the discipline to do just that. But when you paint a picture that's larger than yourself, people want to build. They want to be part of that. At Pinnacle, I don't call people employees, I call them associates. They don't work for me, they work with me. And together, we, not I, have built the fastest growing business, women-owned business in the country.
Wow. So I think for the people who are tuning in, those 3 points are so incredibly important, and in particular to start with the bigger vision, the bigger picture of people. I absolutely agree with you that people want to be part of something bigger than themselves. We all want a sense of purpose. And if we can have that sense of purpose, then people just can produce the most amazing things. I mean, they just can do the most amazing things. And sometimes it's easy for us to get mired. And I think particularly for entrepreneurs to get mired in all of the things that have to be done today, right this minute. So Nathalie, how do you advise people, or how do you coach people to keep their eyes on that bigger vision and their bigger purpose, while at the same time knowing that, especially when you're starting out and you can't hire a whole bunch of people necessarily, how do you not let yourself get mired in all of those details that have to be taken care of?
You know, it's a perfect sort of segue into what I was going to add. So it's one and the same, but when you're at the level that you're at, where Niño is, right, where she's, her company, if it already hasn't hit it, it's about to hit $1 billion in revenues. It's very, it's easy to dismiss it as, well, you've got a huge organization with a huge operation, and you have the privilege of being able to stand back and think, how do I do organizational development? How do I do motivation of large teams? But like, I'm a scrappy little entrepreneur. I barely have enough money from, one staff, or maybe you don't even have staff yet. But I would argue that the same philosophy applies, because it's even more important. When you're small and scrappy, people don't work for money. One, because you might not have it.
Right.
Because people don't work for money. People work to be inspired. They work, as Niño said, for a bigger, larger cause. And it's even more important when you're small and scrappy, when you can't afford those great salaries or those great benefits, when you might have to, beg, borrow, and steal from people who are ultimately partners or vendors, or just a sphere of influence, your personal board of directors, your actual company board of directors, people who this is not their full-time gig. And you just have to be, instead of the squeakiest wheel, right, you have to be the most inspiring thing in their life, so that they want to give you that additional time, so they want to work above and beyond what is required of them. So I actually think that it's a similar thing. It's the same way that you lead in large organizations is the way that you've got to lead these smaller ones. And it is about the bigger picture. It is about inspiring people and influencing that way, rather than simply writing a check when you need something. Even if you could afford it, again, people don't work for money. They work to be inspired, and that's when people bring their whole selves. So I would argue that that's number one. And the other thing, Gloria, to your point about like when you're small and scrappy, and how do you not get mired into the details, it's about remembering that your path is different than what, unfortunately, is in the cover of magazines. It's unfortunately very different from what you see on Shark Tank even. The stories that tend to get romanticized, I say this in the book a lot. The stories that tend to get romanticized, the reality is they are people who largely have had safety nets. They have trust funds. They have wealthy friends and family, which is why in the finance industry, we have decided to call it the friends and family round. I have a hack in my book, and I won't curse on your time, Gloria, but there's a hack in the book that, as you know, is called Bleep the Friends and Family Round. Because I find even that name kind of offensive. 95% of all Americans don't have friends and family that can write them checks to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's about staying small, staying scrappy, not small. It's about staying scrappy and being as efficient with the resources as you can in order to grow, and then get to the point, as Niño said, where you can start reinvesting. People, for example, spend thousands of dollars in 2018 on something like a website. Unless your business is actually transacting on a website, unless that is where you are doing all of your business and buying and selling things from there, please don't spend thousands of dollars on a website. Don't even spend a few $100s on business cards unless you absolutely need to. If you're selling something on Etsy, work on your site on Etsy. It's free. If you have a restaurant, don't have a website. Put a lot of energy into that Yelp page that, Yelp gave you for free, right? That's where your customers are. And so I think that it's about holding yourself to your own standard and not necessarily doing what those guys on the cover of magazines are telling you to do, because their experience is different than yours.
Oh, wow. There's so much good advice already coming. I wanted to, I've got thousands of questions for you, but I want to take questions that have been sent in already from the eager people out there. Colleen from Texas wants to know, what if you feel stuck, especially if you're over 50? Is there still an open mind for women in this entrepreneurial arena?
Okay, can I take that? And I know Niño probably has.
Yeah, jump in. Lady.
Okay, two things. No, there's not an open mind. We live in a society that, you know, romanticizes the 20-something-year-old entrepreneur that looks like Mark Zuckerberg. However, if people were fact-based, if people were making decisions based on data, all investment would be geared towards women over the age of 50, because the data, I happen to know this particular data because it's an important one. Women over the age of 50 have twice the likelihood of being successful as entrepreneurs of any other demographic in this country. So if investors, if magazines, if all of the media that consumes this world of startups were actually focusing on the one area that is most likely to be successful and get them return on their investment, we would see nothing but women over the age of 50 wallpapered all over every single publication about startups. And so no, the answer is we don't value women over the age of 50 as we should. And the answer is we need more of you, and we need to make noise, because twice as likely to be successful is huge.
Thank you. I love that.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And what I would add to that, first of all, for me, age is just a state of mind. But for me, you know, entrepreneurship is not the same, to Nathalie's point, for everyone. I break it down into two types of entrepreneurs. There's a lifestyle entrepreneur and there's an empire builder. Some people start their businesses to create a better life, just to create a better life for themselves and their family. In fact, statistically, most women start businesses for that reason. And so I've had the pleasure of speaking all around the world in 5 different continents, and I can tell you, women start businesses to elevate their family, to give back, and that's just an amazing thing. And there's a lot of very successful lifestyle entrepreneurs, extremely successful. Not everybody wants to take the route of being an empire builder, because the sacrifices that you have to make on each side are very different, and both entrepreneurs are an amazing experience. Mm-hmm. And so for me, you've got to decide, you know, at 50, do you want to build an empire? If so, you got to be well aware of the kind of sacrifices that I'm talking about. The sacrifices of delaying gratification, putting people first. I mean, I remember times pregnant, falling asleep on my couch in my office. I remember 24 hours before we almost missed payroll. Like, I remember all those days and the sacrifices and the blood, sweat, and tears that it took. And you have to decide if that's what you really want to do. Or a lifestyle entrepreneur, where you can build a vision, create a company, and have an incredible lifestyle, not just for you, but for the many people that will join you. So I think that's a critical element when thinking about a business, irrespective of what age you are.
And I would just add that both are great paths, right? The majority of jobs in the United States are because of small businesses, right? So that small business is not any less critical to the economy. It's not any less critical to building our communities, right?
That's exactly right. In fact, it's been the fuel that has fueled the American economy. When you look at it, small businesses have been fueling the American economy.
I don't disagree with any of that, but I got to push back just a little bit. Okay. Because, you know, I mean, my big vision mission is that women and men will have parity in leadership. And for that to happen, there has to be parity in the wealth, because that's how you get there. And what really, it does concern me that I can't disagree that having a lifestyle business it can be a very good thing, but we need to see at least some critical mass of women creating wealth at the level of Zuckerberg or Jobs or Gates. I mean, we need to see that, because when we get to that point, we will make some giant leaps, I believe, toward parity in power in all different sectors. What do you think about that?
I agree. And I think that they're there. And I think that the reason they're not thriving is twofold. One of them is just straight up simple bias, right? We know the stats, right? Women are getting 2.5% of all venture capital, and women of color are getting 0.2% of all venture capital. That's just straight up bigotry, right? There's no other explanation for that, because there's no way that women of color, who are also the most entrepreneurial women in this country, are only owners of 0.2% of all good ideas. That is absolutely mathematically impossible. So there's that. And then the second thing is that a lot of women of color, a lot of women in general, are lacking these basic resources that we need in order to make these large scale businesses successful. The networks, the friends who are lawyers and can give you free legal, the friends in large corporations that can give you the first few breaks and the first few contracts. And for that, we need entire ecosystems to thrive, right? That's why, to me, a mass-produced book published by the largest publisher in the world is important. It's like, you know, to me, getting the word out there about how women can circumvent the status quo and the systems that are currently holding us back is critical, because going the traditional route of step 1, step 2, step 3, the way that people prescribe it to us, is clearly not working. And so I want to arm women with these tools because they're there, they're just being held back.
So,
Gloria,
did you want to add something there, Nina?
I do, because you just touched on my life's work. And my belief that is equivalent to yours is that we need to create wealth in our community in order to propel all of us. And that's why it's not enough for me to have built an incredible company, but it is now, to whom much is given, much is expected. How can I utilize my resources, my influence, my dollars, my everything, my leadership to create more women-owned businesses? In this country, there are 10.6 women-owned businesses. Sadly, less than 2% are over $1 million.
Wow.
So we don't have a problem starting businesses. Women, they're resilient, they're risk takers, they're starting businesses at twice the rate of our male counterparts, I might add. Latinas are leading the way from a statistic, from a numbers point. But the question is, how do we scale? So we don't need, when I say we, I say women don't need help starting them up. They need help scaling them up. And that is why I'm eternally grateful to organizations like the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. Nathalie talked about ecosystems. It is basically the mothership of all women-owned businesses in America. They couple and partner with corporate America for one purpose and one purpose only. Their mission is to get women-owned businesses together with corporate America to build businesses and scale. And that's where I've spent a lot of time in that ecosystem. I remember when I first joined the Women's Business Council, I was a $2 million company and pregnant. And I was showing up, and for me, that, by the way, that was 18 years ago. And for me, being in that ecosystem, meeting other like-minded women that have the same challenges, meeting potential customers in corporate America that wanted to do business with women-owned businesses, and creating that ecosystem, more importantly, watching women, you cannot be what you cannot see. So I went to these conferences and I'm seeing these women run these big companies, and some of them even looked like me. And so for me, that was very inspirational. I wanted to befriend them. I wanted to be like them. And I have had the ability to, as Nathalie said, be in the right ecosystem with people that want to see you succeed. So if you don't know about the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, you absolutely should.
Fabulous. Another great tip. So we are, I hate to say this, already at the halfway mark. Okay. And so here I am. I'm Gloria Feldt, just in case you've just tuned in. I'm Gloria Feldt, co-founder and president of Take the Lead, and this is our monthly virtual happy hour, which is designed to bring you an opportunity to actually talk firsthand and ask your questions of incredible women like the two guests we have here tonight. Nathalie Molina Niño, who is the founder of BRAVA Investments, and Vaca, who is the founder and CEO of the Pinnacle Group. So just to tell you a little bit more about Take the Lead, our mission is nothing less than leadership gender parity by 2025. And you can see on our website, taketheleadwomen.com, a lot more about our training programs for individuals, for companies. We also do events like this, so that, as Nina said, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So we try to make sure that you get to see it. We have big events and small events and all kinds of things that we want to help you know what your opportunities are out there and give you a higher level of intentionality. I like to talk a lot about intentionality. If you, I want to just mention that you have a chance, if you'd like to take a look at Take the Lead's blog, The Movement. I think that we have some links on your screen that you'll be able to see what's up, what's hot, what's new there. And we've always got something great, and we try to make sure that you have access to some of the latest and greatest information about what's happening in the field of women's leadership, and also what's happening with women leaders, again, that you want to know, and issues that we have to deal with every day, like being 9 months pregnant when we're at a critical stage of our business. Or, you know, I love to just kind of say to people, you know, think about it for a minute. What if women had created and designed our institutions 200 years ago, right? Having babies is nothing really very new in this world. I think we would have figured out how to do this. So that's a whole big thing that's on women's minds very often.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember to stay to the end, because we have a special gift, a special giveaway, and some lucky person is going to win a copy of Nathalie's amazing new book, Leapfrog. So be sure to continue sending in your questions, and I'm going to get back to some questions right now. Okay.
Which doesn't launch till August 28th, by the way. So whoever gets it is going to get it before anybody else.
Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. All right. Okay. Joanne from California asks, how can I develop my leadership skills to do the things that you're talking about? Who wants to take that one first? Small question, right?
I love Nina raised her hand like she's in class.
Pick me. No. You know, I started the company when I was 25 years old. And so developing my leadership skills, my education has been a lifelong journey. There are the typical executive programs. I've been to them all. I've been to Harvard, at Kellogg, at Dartmouth. Check, check, check. But I think one of the most amazing ways to develop your leadership is by joining ecosystems of women that you want to be like and that inspire you. Women are very apt, the right women are very apt to share their stories, share their leadership, and you can get a lot of experience being on nonprofit boards, getting involved, showing your leadership in something other than your day job. I think that's really critical, is showing your leadership in something other than your day job and garnering that community and that the ecosystem of mentors. That's how I have recruited mentors. I shouldn't say I've recruited, I have earned mentors and sponsors, because they watch you along the way and they want to see you succeed. Mentors are people who are willing to give you advice, who are willing to help you, give you a kind word. But sponsors are people who put their neck out for you, are willing to put their own political capital in your success. And they will not do that if they don't believe in you. And so for me, there's a lot of leadership that could be inside your company. There's a tremendous amount of leadership that you can garner outside of your company. WPO is a women's group of your peers. They have small peer-to-peer networking. Women, again, that will share their experiences, both personal and in business. Because by the way, the personal commitment of your family and the unconditional support from your family is critical as a woman. It is critical as a woman for you to succeed, to have that right life partner and that right family support that will help you and want to see you succeed.
And to find your cohort if you don't have that naturally occurring one. I would say, one of the things that we have learned to Take the Lead is that we've been, for the last couple of years, doing a program and developing it further, and we're about to blast out with about 5 or 6 different sectors in the next 6 months to a year. And it's a program called 50 Women Can Change the World. And what we saw, I mean, we started it just as it was your normal leadership program that was designed to help the individual woman, which it definitely does. And it's a very, very rich curriculum, and they make their own strategic leadership action plans. But what I started noticing the first time around was that the women organically started forming a cohort. And they started helping each other. Yep, they started helping each other, sponsoring each other, hiring each other, being on each other's boards, helping each other with fundraisers, whatever it was that they needed. So we started with nonprofits, and now we're about to, and then we did one for media and entertainment, and one for healthcare, and now we're about to do one for journalism and finance. And next year we hope to really blast out with some for women in tech. And so I'll be talking to both of you about that one, because it's that you're absolutely right. You've got to find your tribe. You've got to find your cohort. You've got to find the people who will support you, and don't bother with people who are negative. I'd say, I mean, if I can put my own little tip in here, it's like, okay, if after a while you get to know who actually lifts you up, and that's who you want to be with. I'm going to go a little faster now because we have so many questions. They're being tweeted in. Oh my God, I can't keep up with all of them. Okay, so Adriana from New York asks, what are the benchmarks your investors are looking for in funding a startup? That's a big one. Who wants that?
I'll take that.
All right, Nathalie.
It really depends. It depends on, but I'll give you examples, because I know depends is not always a real specific answer. It depends on what stage you're in. It depends on whether you have revenue, don't have revenue. If you have revenue, how much revenues. It depends on the potential for growth. It depends on your industry. I was in a situation recently where an investor that is used to investing in the tech space saw a deal that I invested in that was in the pharmaceutical space. And her response to somebody raising, in this case, a Series A, right? So usually it's about the third time that you're out there getting funding by the time you get to the Series A. Usually by the time the Series A rolls around in tech, you have revenue, right? And so when she said, well, what do you mean they don't have revenue and they're raising a Series A? It was alarming to her, again, because she comes from the world of tech. And I was able to very quickly reframe and say, that applies in the world of tech, doesn't apply in the world of pharmaceuticals, right? And so no two industries are the same. And I think what's important to look for is to really study your ecosystem, to study and see what the growth trajectory of the different companies who are similar or related to you, how have they grown? When did they reach certain stages? That's kind of going back to Gloria's point. That's where these alliances become even more important, right? We often, as women, will talk in generalities about how things are going at work, but we're not talking about revenue numbers. We're not talking about salaries. We're not talking about the down and dirty numbers of things. And that's what we have to do. And so that's generally, and then specifically as an investor, what I'm looking for is an extraordinary team that can answer the question of why are you the most suited and most appropriate person to take this particular business into the market? What is it that makes you uniquely positioned to make this company successful? I want solid, great answers to that question. And then I want a solid, clear vision for where you're going to take the company. And I want really, really candid and honest answers to the question of what can possibly go wrong. I don't focus on that. That's not the first question, but it is insightful to hear somebody say, here's my plan B, here's my plan C, I build safety nets. And I look for that because I'm a long-term investor. Now, there are other investors that don't focus on the long-term. Peter Thiel, a lot of the guys in Silicon Valley, they're not looking for long-term. They're looking to get in and get out within a few years and wash their hands of this and hopefully walk away with a big, exit and a big check. I'm not that kind of investor. I want to hold a company, if possible, forever. I want to help you grow it. I want to see it double, triple, quadruple in size on my watch and beyond. And then I want to be perfectly comfortable collecting the dividends every quarter, the same way that Warren Buffett is perfectly happy keeping his shares of Coca-Cola, because guess what? They're printing money.
So what I heard you actually just then say is that, excuse me, there are multiple kinds of investors too, and you need to know your investor as well. So,
Totally.
Okay, I've got a great question here from Maria, who says, I am in Chicago, and although beautiful, it still maintains an old mob culture that locks out women and minorities. How can entrepreneurs that can't leave this space find networks that assist in their growth and escape the politics? Is it ever possible to escape the politics? And how do you break in where no one like you has been before?
I do want to say that We answered her in the little thread and we gave her a couple of really interesting things. I know somebody on your team gave her a link, and then I gave her a link of the United States of Women created a training program called Galvanize, and we've been all around the country, and we trained 1,000 women in Chicago, in fact. And I provided her the link, but it really goes back, in my view, to alliances, especially in an environment like the experience that she's having in Chicago. Nothing could be more important than those alliances, as Niño said, and these organizations, right? In these sorts of markets, in any market where the deck is kind of stacked against you, nothing is more important than those alliances, right?
The world turns on human connections, right?
No, I would agree. And again, the Women's Business Council is also in Chicago, as is WPO, as is United States of Women. And the thing about entrepreneurship is that failure is not an option. And if you can't get in through the front door, go to the side door, go to the back door, go to the garage, climb up the chimney. The thing about entrepreneurs is they're eternal optimistic people like myself. And they always see the glass half full, and you cannot let somebody, oh, by the way, politics is a contact sport, and you can't let anything stand in the way of your success. Find your tribe, find your alliances, find your ecosystem, make it happen. That's what entrepreneurs do. They stay committed, they stay resilient, and they stay the course. Because if you're on the right path, you will find that tribe. You will find those mentors, but you have to put in the work. You got to put in the work. Do not feel defeated. You are a woman, and it is a great time to be a woman in this country. The amount of women that are starting businesses, you are not alone. If you think of yourself as just, oh, I'm here in Chicago, I'm by myself on an island, change that. Change your perspective. You are not just a single woman in Chicago. You are part of an entire powerhouse, a movement, women that are changing this world. Once you change that perspective and you view yourself differently, I promise you'll start acting differently.
Okay, here's where we are right now. We've just got about like 3 to 5 minutes to just like wrap this, to do more questions here before we go into our closing
rapid fire
questions and comments. So we're going to do rapid fire here. So we're going to see, okay, you're going to have like 30 seconds to answer each question. Okay. All right. So Kala asks, why are we not teaching women how to prototype and grow their network, which you just told them how to do that. So scratch that one, like a boss in the very earliest stages? I think it's the like a boss that is really the critical part of this.
I'll give you a really short answer to that, and it's in my book. There's a section where the same way that we Pinterest our weddings and we Pinterest the way we want to remodel our houses and buy a new sofa, you Pinterest the goals that you have around who you want to network with. You create your wall of all the different women and men and gurus that you want to be connected with, and you go through that list like it's religion, and you make sure that it is that methodical, and it becomes in a way a vision board, right?
And if you want people to regard you as behaving like a boss, you have to behave that way, right? Yeah, you have to model what you think what you need to be. It gets easier with time. Let me just say that.
Well, and as Niño said, right, it's about
other people.
Yeah, of course, and Nina's a friend who, by the way, would bury a body for me, in the figurative sense. And I would do the same. And I think that when she talks about finding your people and finding your tribe, that's it. It's not just people who are like-minded. It's people who would also be as committed to you as you are to them.
Okay.
Nothing is a better example. I know we're running out of time, but I have to tell you, this is serious business, building deep personal relationships and surrounding yourself with women that'll help you. If more women did that, the impact that we would have as a community would be, forget the class ceiling. I went to Nathalie's 40th birthday party, and it was a who's who of powerful women.
Including Gloria.
Yes, and didn't need, what I'm talking about. Yeah, there was no alcohol needed. We were ecstatic just to be around each other, just to support each other, and to help each other in each and every way. So I would answer your question, the past question you said, pick 3 things you want to be known by, and then live your life by them.
Frame it. Cool. All right. EM asks, how do you refresh your vision? How do you refresh your vision over time?
Quick
Okay.
answer for me as an entrepreneur, quick answer is you've got to study your marketplace. In the tech space, we are innovating faster than we can shake a stick. And you refresh your vision. There is no such thing as a 10-year vision in the tech space. Our industry is changing so much. You have got to constantly be a student of the market and be willing to adapt.
I would just add to that the way I refresh my vision is I do a meditation. I also have this meditation in the book where I walk through my ideal perfect day in the event of my business, for example, being wildly successful. And I think of whatever, 5 years, 10 years, whatever that is, what do I want to eat for breakfast? What do I want to be doing that day? Am I going into an office? Am I on an island in the Bahamas? And that vision changes, and it's changed over my lifetime. And so I keep that as my true north. And then whatever I'm working on, whatever business I'm, prioritizing, whatever my daily activities are, if they're not directly connected to getting me to that vision and that meditation of what I want my ideal day to look like, then I'm on the wrong track.
All right. Well, so Cindy wants to know, what keeps you up at night? A quick answer to that one. What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me personally up at night is, do I have the right people around me to get to where Pinnacle has the potential to be? Am I centered? Am I humble? Am I, you said quick answer. What keeps me up at night is what I don't know. What I don't know. And to never I never rest on my laurels. To me, a large company or a small company, the only difference is zeros. The stakes are just as high. It's just as hard. The risks are even harder. When you're in the mid-market, you're just in a different place and just as hard. So for me, what keeps me up at night is, do I have the right tribe? Can I continue to add to that tribe to get to where we need to go? And am I centered enough? And am I honest enough with myself to know that I may not know all the answers? And that's a mistake that women make, is they believe as the CEO, they have to know all the answers and they've got to be the smartest person in the room. And nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is, a smart, confident woman surrounds themselves with great people and then allows them to do your job. Be a leader. It made a big difference for me to work in my business and then work on my business. And that's really powerful and worth mentioning.
Okay, Nathalie, what keeps you up at night?
I have a big chosen family as well as biological family. What keeps me up at night, and I mean big, I mean like, I'm a child of immigrants. What's happening on the border, what's happening in politics, what's happening in business, like my tribe is massive. And so what keeps me up at night is making sure that my tribe is okay. And lately, there's been a lot that worries me. And as a result, I lose a lot of sleep, but I'm also very productive. And it means that I have more fuel and more inspiration to make sure that everything that I'm doing is moving the dial in one way or another. And I have become less and less patient the older I get. And I have lower and lower tolerance for anything remotely looking or smelling like BS. So a lot keeps me up at night.
Okay. The whole world. It's like you've got the whole world on your shoulders. Oh my gosh, yes.
Don't we all as women, right? We're trying to be a lot of things to a lot of people.
We do. And the amazing thing is we're incredibly successful at doing that most of the time.
But we have to be okay when we're not.
Yes,
one of the things, I get the work-life family question every time. I'm surprised it hasn't come up. And, women, I had the pleasure of being with Indra a couple of months ago when she was doing a fireside chat, and they asked her an important question. They said, how do you prioritize? What's more important, being a wife, mom, or a CEO? And her answer was beautiful. Her answer was,
yes,
well, it depends what day it is, and it depends what time of day. And, as women, we try to be everything to everyone, and to think that we can do all of them at the same time perfectly is just not going to happen. We have to understand, we beat ourselves up. By the way, I always tell women, do not beat yourself up. Somebody else will gladly do that for you. And so we have to balance being there for friends, being there for family, being there for your community, being there for your company. And I just think it's really important to take a deep breath and understand that we're not going to be perfect at every single one of them all the time.
No.
So I'm going to ask each of you to take maybe 40 seconds and answer this question. And I apologize to people who we were not able to answer all of your questions, but I hope that somewhere in this very rich discussion, your question was answered somehow or another. And if not, we've got your tweets and we'll try to see what we can do to answer your questions. I'd love for each of you to leave our people that are watching us tonight or with us tonight with the key takeaway you would like them to have. What's the key takeaway you'd like them to leave with? Nathalie?
Yeah.
What's your key takeaway?
The entire reason I wrote the book is because of the statistic that you mentioned. There are different organizations that say different numbers, right? The one I remember was one that was published by the World Economic Forum, which was 170 years to gender parity, right? And maybe this was a global figure. I think that we have books on negotiation that tell us about how to get to yes. I think that we have all sorts of old adages saying that patience is a virtue. And I guess that if I were to leave people with one thought, it's that now is the time to figure out how to say no to all the things that don't make sense, to say no to all the injustices and the lack of parity and all of the things that we've tacitly said yes to. And I also think that it's time to be more impatient, because the next generation needs us to skip steps and circumvent the status quo to make sure that 170 years never becomes a reality.
Beautiful. Nina, what takeaway do you want to leave our people with tonight?
That is so powerful. You know, the takeaway from me is perspective is everything. How you view yourself is directly related to who you will become. There's two kinds of perspectives: the way people view you, and you can control that, but more importantly, the way you view yourself. As an entrepreneur, you need your investors to believe in you, your family to believe in you, your employees or associates to believe in you, your bankers to believe in you, but the number one person that needs to believe in you is you. You know, I think Nellie Galan has it right. Being self-made, believing in yourself, and knowing that you're not by yourself. Again, you're part of a massive ecosystem. And so if you can define yourself as not just a woman or an entrepreneur, but define yourself as the true powerhouse that is and will continue to change this country, I think you'll start to act differently.
Oh my gosh, incredible, incredible words of support, advice, inspiration. I cannot thank you both enough for being with us tonight. I mean, I'm going to watch this video over and over and over again every time I need a little jolt of inspiration myself. I have one very last question for each of you. What song or quote gets you powered up? You've got 2 seconds to answer that one.
Say it again. What song or quote what?
What song or quote gets you powered up?
Oh, easy. It's a common meditation for me, and it's "You are the source of your own supply." It was words told to me by a mentor named Awilda Verdejo, a New Yorican powerhouse opera singer who knows nothing about technology, but who has been one of my best mentors. And it's "You are the source of your own supply."
Bye. I'm gonna put that on my computer. Nina, what quote or song gets you powered up?
You know, one of my favorite quotes, because as entrepreneurs and as people, there's always peaks and valleys. Again, 22 years to become an overnight sensation. Yeah. There's a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. And it's easy to have perspective in those peaks, but it's in those valleys that you need perspective the most. And one of my favorite quotes that I always think about sometimes when you don't win a deal, when you have a disappointment, when you failed on an issue, you know, my favorite quote is, "Life is not fair."
Beautiful.
She just did a mic drop.
She did. Oh my gosh. Whoa. Okay.
She just like appeared and then she disappeared.
Well, okay. So the only thing I have left to do here is to say who gets to win your book, Nathalie, and Hema Kapula from Redwood, California, is this month's lucky winner of a copy of Leapfrog. So you can look for an email from us, Hema, and we will be seeing as soon as it's out and available, we will make sure that you have it. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us tonight. Thank you to our incredible guests, Nina Vaca and Nathalie Molina Niño. And thank you for all of the incredible advice and counsel and inspiration you've given to us. And hey, power to you.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thanks for joining Take the Lead Presents Virtual Happy Hour. Be sure to tune in again next month. Remember, it's the second Wednesday of every month at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 1 hour, once a month, to boost your career. Until then, power to you.